What's up, y'all? Alvin here, and this is all the gear I use to catch trout on the fly in Patagonia.
I tell the good jokes.
All right, before we get started, a couple of things. You'll see a lot of Orvis gear here, and that's because Orvis sent me this gear. Now, they did not ask me to make the videos. They had no input on the videos. They're not going to see the video before you see the video. This isn't really a gear review anyway. This is just sort of what I took on my trip. The other thing is, when you say fishing in Argentina or you say fishing in Patagonia, it's almost like saying fishing in the Western US. So there's a lot of different types of fishing to be done in Argentina and in Patagonia, and what we did is more like, say, fishing in northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, not like fishing in Montana or fishing the Pacific Northwest. So we weren't throwing any sinking lines, we weren't chasing after sea run fish, and we weren't even wearing waders. So this is all the gear that I took. Your trip may be different, your gear may be different, but this is the gear that I used for fly fishing for trout in northern Patagonia. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, I got my trusty Orvis carry-it-all bag. I've used this bag quite a bit for most of my travel. I like it because I can put my rods in here and most of my other gear. Watch the end though, because I have something really important to tell you about traveling with your fishing gear in Argentina. Okay, first off, let's get to the exciting part, the rods and reels. Now you'll notice that this bag is not completely full. There's lots more room, and I did have other stuff in here, like some of my camera gear. So right now, you know, I've just got a couple, my GoPro, some extra SD cards. Yes, my Gerber line driver on a lanyard. My Osmo pocket gimbal, you know, spare batteries, extra float and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff was actually transferred into my hip pack, and we'll look at that in a minute. So the most exciting part, of course, is the rods. I only took 3 rods, and like I said, because we're fishing more small stream stuff, I ended up taking 2 5-weights and 1 4-weight. So 9.5 foot 5-weight blackout H3. And the funny thing was Joey and Leo, my partners on the trip, had their gear as well, but they all ended up using the Orvis H3 rods, and they had some interesting things to say about them. So this ended up being Leo's favorite rod of the 3, the 9.5 footer. He said it was an absolute rocket ship. He could make long casts very easily, and he ended up liking it quite a bit. Joey, on the other hand, preferred the 9-foot 5-weight H3, which is pretty awesome as well. Nice and light, gets the job done. But my favorite rod for the trip ended up being the 9-foot 4-weight H3. So, like I said, we were not throwing any sink tip lines, you know, throwing any big heavy stuff, and pretty much all the fishing we were doing was with dry flies or with dry flies and a nymph dropper. So I ended up having a great time throwing the 4-weight, the 9-foot 4-weight H3. This was the rod I used the majority of the trip, and it worked out great. It did get windy in the afternoons, but typically most of the day I was able to do any of the casting that I needed to do with the 4-weight. I would not have wanted to only have the 4-weight, that's for sure, and might not have been a bad idea to take a 6-weight. But I went with the guy's recommendation and planned on fishing with the 5s, brought the 4 just in case, and ended up really loving the 4-weight. So, like I said, just my experience for where we were. Your experience may be different, but that's what worked out best for me. Okay, so rods, got that covered. Now let's check out the reel. So I took 3 reels, of course, to go with the 3 rods. All just weight forward floating lines on them. The 5-weight, this is the Orvis Mirage LT2, perfect for the 5-weight 9.5 footer, and this had the Orvis Pro tapered line on it. Okay, so interesting thing about the textured lines. Joey and Leo both commented on the sound that the textured lines make when they go through the guides. And initially it was a little bit off-putting for both of them. I told them that these are not nearly as bad as the old shark skin lines, which actually had so much texture they'd slice into your finger. But it is a noticeable difference between this and the smooth line. But they both agreed that the textured line shot so much further and so much easier that once you kind of forgot about the sound, they were definitely worth having. So take that how you will. But that's 2 guys who initially did not like them, who changed their minds and decided that they liked them. I kind of can go either way. I do like the textured lines for saltwater fishing, and the sound doesn't bother me. I've been using them for a long time, so no big deal, but just something to think about. And on the other rods, we had the Orvis Hydros 2 reel. Once again, with the weight forward floating line, textured line on this one as well, the Orvis Pro Trout line. And on the 4-weight, the Orvis Mirage LT2 as well. It's nice to have the reels be different colors, so as we were rigging them up, we didn't have to guess about which reel went with which rod, so they were all color coded, and this one just happened to have the smooth line on it. So like I said, I like the textured line, I like the smooth line as well. Not a whole lot more in this bag to start with, so let's move on to the next part. Okay, so this is how I carried my gear when I was fishing, and this is the Orvis Guide Hip Pack. A couple things I like about this one is the tippet holder on the front. That's really nice. I did tend to wear this on the front, you know, like more of a chest pack, a low riding chest pack, because I had my backpack on the whole time. And it's nice to have my tippet here handy, little fly patch on top to put flies in. Initially, I was concerned about not having a lot of external places to attach stuff, but then I realized the more stuff that's on the outside, especially when you have the pack on the front, the more stuff that's going to grab your fly line. So I ended up being glad that there wasn't a bunch of attachment points on the outside. So what I ended up doing was just using the little ends for the tippet spool holder to attach my floatant and my clippers. So pretty easy just to reach inside, grab that stuff, and that's good to go. We'll just talk a little bit about flies, and maybe I'll make a whole nother video on flies. The flies were pretty simple, actually. I caught most of my flies on either some type of hopper pattern or the little nymph, the formerly known as a Prince nymph. We call it a formerly. If you haven't seen that one, that was one of my favorite flies when I was a guide in Colorado, and that ended up being one of the favorite flies for fishing in Argentina. Like I said, we can go into flies, but fortunately it was pretty simple. You know, most of the time just a dry dropper, some larger dry, you know, like a parachute Madam X or a hopper pattern, and then if we weren't getting strikes on that, we'd put a dropper on, either a smaller dry, usually something pretty generic, you know, a Parachute Adams, something like that, or some type of nymph dropper. And most of the time the nymph droppers were attractor patterns. Prince nymphs, pheasant tails, stoneflies, stuff like that. We were fishing pretty remote water, so the fish were not typically very selective, just very spooky. All right, so that is my hip pack, and you guys can check this thing out online. It's pretty cool. Comes with a couple of different straps. Strap has more storage here. You can attach your clippers here. Like I said, I like to leave mine on the inside. This little pouch on the side, you can put your net through there. Nice side zipper pockets. it's pretty cool. And I actually had not worn a hip pack or anything like that because I hadn't done a lot of wade fishing lately. You know, I'm usually in the boat, and the majority of our fishing, at least for the first half of our trip, was wade fishing. So I was glad to have that, and I will definitely be using it in the future. And another thing, so I kept my spare leaders in this front pouch along with, you know, a snack. So when it comes to leaders, for what we were doing, it was pretty simple. We used 3X, 4X, and occasionally 5X. So once again, we're fishing pretty remote, wild fish, not super selective, just kind of spooky. So as long as you can make good casts, you didn't have to worry most of the time about using small tippets, which is something else I really like. All right. The last thing I want to share with you is these guys. So this is the new Orvis Pro Approach Hiker. It's on the Orvis website. I really did like these. I was a little bit nervous initially because Joey told me it was going to be really slippery wading in a lot of places, but we're also going to be doing a lot of walking, and I definitely wanted something that I could hike in. And these guys ended up being great, very comfortable. They've got the an actual, you know, boot on the inside, but it's nice because they have this zip up outer that like a gravel cuff, but also keeps your laces in place. And yeah, they were really nice. And I'm not sure what that Michelin sole material is, but the rubber's pretty sticky, and I think I slipped 2 or 3 times because of, you know, slippery rocks, but I feel like I would have slipped around a lot more. That's one of the things I remember about being a guide in trout country was I was not a very good wader, which is good for me because I spent more time in the boat than I did wading, but we did a lot of wading on this trip, and I felt very comfortable and very confident after a while in these things. And yeah, I can recommend them, and who knows, maybe I'll do a video just about the boots in the future. But for now, that's it. More to come on this whole Argentina thing. I got so much footage to go through. Oh, and here's that little tip about traveling with fishing gear in Argentina. You can't carry on your fishing gear on domestic flights. So think about that in advance when you're packing. You know, stuff like camera batteries that you can carry on, you can't check. Ask me how I know. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. More to come. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel. If you like these kind of videos, you might want to check out this series of videos right here.